Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us this evening. I am in charge of the OD task force. Our state attorney, Brian Haas, has created a task force so that when there's an officer-involved shooting, that the lead detectives don't come from the agency that does the shooting. So we are in charge of this investigation tonight, and I will fill you in about the investigative information that we have up to this point just as soon as Greg Gorick, one of the finest chiefs of police that I've ever met, gives you information concerning the initial event and ultimately the shooting. As I always say, we're transparent. We release as much information to you as early as we can, but it's very important for you to understand that anything we tell you tonight is subject to modification as the investigation goes on and the details clear up. So with that, let me first introduce you to my friend, Chief Gorick. Chief.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate it. Good evening. Tonight, around 7 o'clock, one of my officers in the city limits of Haines City located a stolen vehicle. It was a 2014 Nissan Versa that had been stolen in the near vicinity within the prior 24 hours. The officer followed the vehicle for a short distance until backup arrived, and then they tried to initiate a traffic stop. Now, it's very important to understand that at this point, the people driving that vehicle could have ended this and stopped this by pulling over and doing the right thing. They chose instead to flee. Now, my officers, realizing that this vehicle is a 2,400-pound missile, could place other lives in danger. So they did attempt to stop the vehicle, and they initiated a pursuit. The pursuit went for a short distance, and then the suspects committed a count of aggravated battery with a motor vehicle by striking another vehicle near the intersection of Highway 27 and Polk City Road. Okay. At that point, the officers still continued to pursue. They made sure that they called that in so that people could respond and take care of those citizens. The pursuit continued until it got to a very populated area, and then my officers decided that the risk to apprehend them was not outweighed by the possible danger to the public as they entered a residential area. So my officers slowed down, discontinued, and went the other way. Shortly thereafter, the suspects continued to drive in a reckless manner, and a deputy sheriff who was in the area and when they were initially pursuing the vehicles had pulled over and was ready to deploy what are called stop sticks. These are devices that are deployed on the roadway that can help end a pursuit. While he was standing there beside his vehicle waiting to see what was going to happen, the suspects actually emerged back onto Highway 27, went onto the shoulder of the road, and ran over these stop sticks that were sitting in the grass. So again, driving in a reckless manner, drove off the road, struck these stop sticks, and continued northbound on Highway 27. At that point, the pursuit was reinitiated and continued northbound on 27, sometimes reaching speeds of 100 miles an hour. Now, luckily, the traffic was light, which we were very thankful for on Friday. Otherwise, again, we would have discontinued the pursuit because we don't want to endanger the public. As the pursuit continued northbound, they struck another vehicle, again, another count of aggravated battery on an innocent citizen here in Polk County with this 2,400-pound missile. Again, at any time, these suspects could have ended it by just simply pulling over. As we approached our location, my officer asked and decided to engage in what's called a PIT. That's a pursuit immobilization technique. That is a technique designed to use or to stop a vehicle and hopefully get them off of the roadway. Okay. Shortly after requesting permission to do so, the vehicles came to a rest on the shoulder of the road. During that encounter, my officer was forced to engage in a deadly encounter with the suspect and had to fire his firearm. Okay? The suspect was reaching for a firearm, and the suspect was immobilized and was able to be taken into custody. That was the passenger in the vehicle. The driver was also taken into custody. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to the sheriff and let him speak about the officer-involved deadly incident task force and their investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We are going to identify for you the suspects in this investigation. Now, it's important for you to understand that the driver of the stolen vehicle was 19 years old. The passenger who was shot was 17 years old. They should be just kids, one just graduating from high school and the other maybe preparing to graduate from high school. But that's not what you have here. We see gang affiliation tattoos on the 19-year-old, and we certainly believe that he is affiliated with a gang. It's early in the investigation of his gang status. But let me introduce to you Victor Espinoza Rodriguez. At only 19 years of age, he already has 11 felony charges, 6 misdemeanor charges, and 3 violation of probations. That includes drugs, burglary, and 1 year ago this month, he was charged with what? Fleeing to elude law enforcement. He's a bad guy. With him was Javier Nahera. He's a Hispanic male, 17 years of age. He's from Lake Hamilton. Victor is from Haines City. At only 17 years of age, he already has 4 misdemeanors, a felony, and 5 violations of probation. Our juvenile has no inclination to obey the law. When he's given a break by being placed on probation, they've had to violate him 5 different times. He has charges from drugs to resisting to battery. He currently, as a result of his gunshots, is in emergency surgery at a local trauma center, listed in critical condition. But understand one thing, the officer didn't choose to shoot these folks or shoot at them. Victor was not hit. They chose for the officer to shoot, and that's exactly what happened. So it's important to understand that what was this officer facing? He was facing this 9mm Smith & Wesson handgun, as well as a 2,500-pound missile that they were catapulting themselves down the road at up to 100 miles an hour. Who is the hero Haines City police officer that was protecting the motoring public, that was protecting the children that were riding with their parents to eat tonight? Sean Brunner. He's a 5-year veteran. He's an exceptionally outstanding police officer. He was the one who placed his life in danger, who stood in the gap between good and evil to stop these violent felons from their conduct, and he's to be commended. This investigation is ongoing, but you may want to say to yourself, how did they steal the vehicle? Well, sometime between about 10 o'clock on Thursday night and about 8 o'clock on Friday morning, this car was stolen from a victim in Poinciana. Did I tell you that she left the keys in the vehicle and the vehicle unlocked? So in order to steal it, they just had to walk through the neighborhoods long enough until they found the vehicle. Now, we don't know where the handgun came from at this point. It is not reported stolen. So if you had a handgun stolen in the last few hours, please let us know where you are and give us the information on your gun so we can add more charges. I want to point out that that's not all. Just tonight I was watching advertisements about vote for whatever amendment to legalize marijuana, that low-level, non-violent drug. Well, guess what else we found beside the gun? We found a cannabis bong. That's right, a marijuana cannabis bong beside the 9mm. But what did we find in addition to the cannabis bong with a 9mm? We found cannabis. We found baggies so they could divide it up to sell. And we also found vape cartridges of cannabis. If anyone tells you this stuff is low level and non-violent, call them a liar to their face. It is anything but low level and nonviolent. In fact, they were preparing to, if they'd not already, sold drugs this evening. They had the marijuana to smoke. They had the bong, they had the baggies, and they had the gun. And as a result, once again, we were able to take this very violent pair of felons into custody, not the way we would have preferred, but the way they demanded this evening. Thankfully, our Haines City police officers and our backup deputies were not injured in the process. You know what we know at this point in the investigation. We will continue with this investigation. We will release more information next week. The 17-year-old's parents have been notified so that they can go to the hospital. However, we will not release anything else this weekend. You can ask questions if you like, but quite frankly, you know just about everything that we know at this stage of the investigation. Any questions? Speak loud.
Can you talk about the other car that was hit during this pursuit and the people in that car, what their condition is?
There were two other vehicles that were struck, and one of them complained of some pain, and we recommended that they go to the hospital and be checked out. So in addition to felony possession of marijuana with intent to sell, in addition to stolen vehicle, in addition to aggravated assault with this firearm on our officers, we also have them barreling down the road in a 2,500-pound missile and striking at least two other vehicles. And this driver had been arrested a year ago. Did I bother telling you one more detail, that when the driver is chattering at the hospital with his very minor injuries, he said, "I wasn't driving the car, I was riding in the back seat." No, you weren't. So in addition to all the criminal charges, he's a liar. We'll give him a chance to lie to us some more as we take his statements. The officer was by himself in the vehicle. Backup units were in the immediate area. They were there within seconds of the gunshots occurring, and immediately they rendered aid to the suspect that was shot. As I close out tonight, once again, we prefer to take people into custody peacefully. However, it's important to understand, you have guns, you have cannabis, you try to hurt the innocent public and the police officers, you choose to be shot. We don't choose to shoot you. The investigation goes on. We'll release more information next week. You pretty well know everything we know. God bless you. Good night.